Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I'm going to talk to you guys about something that affects me, affects many of you, and it's of great concern to many of us, and that is lagging delts. We all know I have lagging delts, along with lagging biceps. I don't think anyone questions that, although my own front delts have gotten pretty strong based upon my overhead pressing again. My overall delts tend to lag. They tend to lag. Now, for a lot of you out there, this isn't a problem. I got clients who you guys have seen. I got clients you guys have seen who have big round delts just from overhead pressing. Doing sets of 10 on the overhead press. That's been enough to blow their delts up. For a lot of you out there, I know guys who are like, I don't really do any delt work, I just overhead press, and they actually have pretty good delts. They have pretty good delts. They're fairly balanced. They don't look like they're blasting gear, but they have balanced delts. Now, the point that I would argue with those guys who are genetically gifted in that area, who do pull that off, it's like, okay, you're absolutely right. But if you were to probably really train your delts harder, you would probably get accused of using gear, right? That's what I would say to those same guys who are blessed in that area. Like, they're lucky in that regard because they can have nice, balanced, natural-looking delts just from overhead pressing. Well, that's great. But they could probably get pretty massive delts if they trained them harder. So let's come over to the point. Why does this matter? Well, for guys who are chasing aesthetics, it matters a lot. For me, I haven't historically done that. I care about strength. But I am realizing the longer I stay on YouTube, I do have to improve my aesthetics. I'm going to have to get leaner, do a cut again later. I've got to bring my delts and all that stuff up a lot. It'll also help with my overall strength because having bigger, stronger delts front to back has never made anybody's bench press get weaker. Okay, so that's a point to consider there also. You do use the entire delt to some extent on the bench press, whether it's as a primary mover or whether it's just creating a more stable joint. And that stability matters over the long term. So it's not a negative. There's no downside to making your delts bigger. There really isn't, guys. Some of the training could have downsides, but there's no downside to actually doing it, as in some of it could put wear and tear on your joints. So what do people with lagging delts do? Well, really high reps. That's the only way you're going to get there. Because I've done tons of heavy work. If you guys think about back when I was doing Bulgarian, how many times a week did you guys see me hit a 225 strict press? I know guys who can't do anywhere near that who have bigger delts than me. Right? What a lot of you are going to find is that really, really heavy work for your delts isn't going to fully develop them. It doesn't for me. And what I've been doing, and I think they're growing, they're still lagging. They're lagging in this video, right? Relative to the rest of my torso. You have to do higher rep work. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that delts tend to be very volume resistant. They're very volume resistant. And I've seen even guys like Dr. Mike, who's collected a lot of data. And I don't want people to think that I necessarily agree with everything Mike says, because I don't. Disagree with a lot of what he says and does. But it doesn't mean that he doesn't get the majority of it right, because he does. He has plenty of data to back. A lot of it's his anecdote at this point. Stuff like this is anecdote for him. But he's pretty good at data collection. He coaches and trains a lot of people and has a lot of experience. He's got a background that would really, really tell us what we need to know here, though. I mean, he does have a PhD in kinesiology. He's been a professor of kinesiology. Is a bodybuilder, is a coach, has been a power lifter. And he's pointed that out. Delts seem to need more total sets and volume to grow than a lot of other muscles. They're very, very volume resistant. Okay, they're very volume resistant. And because we're dealing a muscle with 3 different heads, you're not going to grow that muscle with just one exercise. It's not going to happen. Now, a good lateral raise like this might get most of it. Because if you look at the data, these raises, they hit the side delt and the upper trap super hard. Like when I was doing these the other day, someone said, "I look like you're using a lot of trap." Well, it's impossible not to. The data on this even shows that any variation of this movement that hits the side delt maximally hits the upper traps almost as hard as the shrug does. Okay, it's going to build your traps, but it does hit the rear and front delt pretty hard also. Pretty hard also. And if you think about it, what movements also hit the rear delt most effectively? Things like face pulls. Well, you can't do low reps on face pulls. Face pulls are kind of awkward to do even in the 10 rep range. Realistically, face pulls are something that you have to do in the 15 plus rep range to really even keep the form down. To really even keep the form down, you have to do that. Same thing with laterals. These are very, very easy to cheat on. And I'm not saying cheating will automatically make the muscle work less, because that's not always the case, but it can. Because if you bring too many other muscles in, and I'm talking about on a compound movie, this idea, well, if I use more hip, I'll use less quad on the squat. That sort of stuff isn't true. But when we're dealing with small muscles and small movements, that can be the case. At least you lose a lot of the concentric rep. Right? If you cheat on the concentric rep, but you then have control on the eccentric, well, you're probably okay, but you may not be getting ideal concentric stimulation. You might get 95% growth doing that. You might get 95% or 90% while cheating. But when you've got a muscle that's really lagging and is very volume resistant, that grows slower than every other muscle in your body, getting 90% growth in that muscle, it may not be ideal. It may not be the way to go. I would argue it's probably not. You're going to have to make it grow as much as possible. So you're going to have to bring the weight down on lifts like this and go lighter. You're going to have to. Which means really high reps, which works great for a volume resistant muscle. Works great. And you're going to have to make sure you're getting all three heads. And I'm not saying you can't do the rear with rows. That's what I do mostly. I need to start adding face pulls in myself. But I do a ton of rowing. I don't just do 10 sets of rows a week. I do a lot of really high rep strict rowing. But you're going to have to get the side and the rear head. Most guys don't suffer from the interior lagging because they bench so much. In my case, I'm doing a lot of overhead pressing. But you definitely need to make sure you're doing all three. If you're really lagging, you probably need to do high rep overhead presses of some type. In this case, I do like 12 to 15 reps with the axle bar. You need to do high rep lateral raises. I'm doing 15 to 25 reps. If you're not doing a ton of rowing, probably need to work in face pulls, and those are going to be 20 plus reps. You're going to need all that different volume. You're going to need a lot of rep work. And it's not that high reps are magical. It's the nature of the exercises you are doing and the nature of the fact that when you have a very volume resistant muscle, sometimes the really high rep training, some of the transient benefits you get from it can help stimulate further adaptation. What do we mean? Well, if you have a muscle that's really lagging, and a lot of coaches argue, and even some researchers, that really, really high rep training, a lot of what it does is transient, at least for a while. That it's inflammation, which is in water weight, that it's extra glucose storage, it's capillary beds, it's not true hypertrophy. But those things do create an anabolic environment there. And if you have a muscle like that that is very, very volume resistant for you, and it's lagging, and it's not growing, number one, I'd say take any growth you can get, even if it's not deep tissue hypertrophy. Number two, you're conditioning your body to send nutrients to that area. You're conditioning your body to send resources there. If it's willing to cause inflammation there that causes water, if it's willing to store extra glucose there, if it's willing to build capillary beds to clear waste products, that could be part of the issue. It could be the fact that you don't have enough capillary beds and stuff in that area. It could be that you haven't sent adequate resources to it over time, and you can be training your body to do so. And in the long term, all those transient things that you're getting that are temporary stuff that if you quit doing within a few weeks, that growth would disappear. In the long term, they could actually and probably do create more lasting growth in the long term. It creates more potential for growth. And when a muscle is lagging, you need that. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.